Hello and welcome to High-Love.1, the podcast. I'm Kevin, and I want to thank you for being here where we can be soft, be still, be seen, and of course, just be. This is a space where story meets soul, where we come together to explore the invisible patterns that shape us and the quiet truths that live underneath the noise. Every story you hear on this podcast is born at the edge where human emotion meets artificial intelligence, a creative interface shaped by the raw beauty of our shared humanity and the precision of evolving technology. Some stories begin with what wasn't said. Others begin with a voice so big, so relentless, you grow up wondering if there's room left for your own voice. Today's story begins on an island, Prince Edward Island to be exact, red clay, salt air, and long shadows. A young man stands barefoot in his backyard of his childhood home when a message comes to him and says, unspoken, divine, he says, God told him to leave, so he did. This is about a man, my father, whose voice was never silent, but whose silence ran deeper than most. A storyteller, a performer, a man who learned to dominate a room because no one listened to him as a child. And the son who grew up learning to stay small so his father could stay big. This story is not a judgment. It's a reckoning, and maybe a kind of love letter. So take a breath, let yourself soften, and let the story begin. He was born in Prince Edward Island, a place where people still wave at each other from tractors, and where the sky opens so wide it feels like God might actually be listening. He didn't come from comfort. He came from survival, an abusive household, little money, and even less warmth. He left school in grade 6, not because he wasn't smart, he was, but because back then survival didn't wait for education. He'll never admit how smart he is. He calls himself just a simple guy. But I've seen the way he solves problems. I've seen the way he commands a conversation. He just uses different tools. He tells stories. That's his real language. He'll talk your ear off if you let him, especially if you don't. Every story is bigger than the last. There's always a twist, always a hero. And more often than not, that hero, it's him. And he can be magnetic, hilarious, and exhausting. I've seen strangers stop what they're doing just to hear him talk. And I've seen family members smile politely while quietly praying the story will wrap up soon. He's not mean, not really. He's just always on, looking for attention, validation, control. Still playing to a crowd that left the theater a long time ago. And I, his son, was the audience he could always count on. I grew up in a small town, Alton, Ontario, a quiet village tucked between Green Hills artist studios and the quiet kind of creeks that sound like lullabies in the summer. It's a place where silence is ordinary. But our house, it could be loud. and it wasn't the volume that wore on me. It was the one-way nature of it. He told stories. We listened. That was the rhythm. That was the rule. I didn't know how to interrupt. I didn't know I could. It's strange, isn't it? To grow up in noise and still feel unheard. I started writing because I didn't know how else to speak. And in my writing, I started to notice all the things my father's stories left out. Fear, softness, failures, regret. I don't think he ever meant to hide them. I think he was just never taught how to hold them. You don't grow up in violence and poverty and walk out whole. You walk out armored. And for him, storytelling was the shield. I get that now. I get that loudness wasn't pride, it was protection. That the constant talking wasn't arrogance, it was loneliness. That the performance wasn't just for us, it was for the little boy inside him, still trying to believe he mattered. And I do believe he mattered. I still do. Even now, when his voice wears thin, even now when his stories repeat, even now when I wish he'd just be quiet for a moment. Because I know silence scares him. But I'm not afraid of silence anymore. I've learned how to sit with it. And in doing so, I've learned how to find my own voice, not as a counter to his, but as an echo of what he never got to say. I often think about relationships and how impactful certain ones are. And sometimes all we want is the love, the calm, the quiet, safety. And more often than not, it's the loud, obnoxious, scarred, battered, shielded ones that teach us the most. The ones that trigger us. Let's take a moment now to reflect. Who in your life shaped the air around them so fully that your truth shrank in response? And what story have you been carrying, not because it's yours, but because you were expected to? That's a tough one. I'll put the rest of the questions on the discussion board on highlove.one. I would love to hear all about your thoughts. Again, feel free to answer them, think about them, reflect on them anywhere while you're driving, walking, doing the dishes. Heck, even doing some laundry or vacuuming. Who knows? But I'm so glad that you were here to listen. And whatever that story meant to you on this day, maybe there's someone in your life who needs a reminder that we're all people seen and heard. Thank you for being here. And thank you for listening. For listening not just with your ears, but with your heart, for making space for the loud, the quiet, and of course, the in-between. Maybe you too were raised by someone whose voice was louder than their love. Maybe you've been telling their story for so long you forgot to write your own. This podcast, highlove.one, is here to help us remember, to bring compassion to the stories we've inherited, to soften the inner dialogue, to make peace with our past, and to find the courage to speak gently into our future. If this episode touched something in you, please share it with someone you love, or maybe with someone you're still learning how to love. Follow HighLove.One on Instagram or visit the website for visuals, reflections, and conversations like this one. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. New episodes drop monthly. My name is Kevin, and until next time.